Hi, I'm Kenton J Moore. I'm Canadian and I'm a writer. I decided I was going to start doing these videos so that people could get to know me a little bit better, what storytelling means and why I write. Uh, Earlier today, I got a message from a young fan, and they'd put my book down as one of their favorite books on a school assignment. And it got me thinking, like, why do we write? Why does any author write? Why do I write? What's my motivation? And I decided I'd do this series of videos, like where it started, how it's going, and where I hope it goes from here, just so that people can get to know me a bit better as an artist and a creator and a storyteller. So I guess where it began really was I grew up on a farm, a hay farm in British Columbia, Canada, and we didn't have TV a lot, and things like that. When we were kids, we had three channels, all local. Bunny Ears, Turn Them in the Storm. Born in the 80s, typical Gen X. And I learned to read at a very young age. My parents, my mom especially, very much got us into writing as a hobby. We had the set of Encyclopedia Britannicas and stuff as a kid, and reading all these things, reading Peter Benchley and Farley Mowat by the time I was 9 or 10, believe it or not. And around grade, or by the time I was about 11 or 12 years old, I got into Marvel Comics. I started collecting X-Men, Ghost Rider, Silver Surfer, trying to name them all, but I won't. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the comics and the cartoons. And that pretty much continued until in high school. Living on the coast, I moved to the coast of British Columbia, and I discovered film. And I started falling in love with writing screenplays. I like the theatricality of it. I like the character focus, the dialogue, moving action along in those kind of ways. And I started writing screenplays almost exclusively from the time I was 17 until the time I was about 22 years old. And by then, I joined the Royal Canadian Navy and was, posted to ships, traveling the world, experiencing things that even now people that weren't in the military could never understand. And writing kind of took a back seat for years. I was raising kids at the time, was a father, until the time I was about 32, and I left the Navy, retired from the forces, and I ended up working at a cartoon studio in Vancouver, BC. And writing came back. I fell in love with the medium of cartoons and animation. I'd studied writing for animation under an absolutely incredible gentleman by the name of Jack Enyart, sadly passed away. And then I came back to prose finally, not until about 2013 when I self-published my first novella or novelette, which was a young reader's fantasy chapter book that I wrote for my daughter. And after that, like before then, writing was really just something I did for myself. I did it because I had to. My whole life, I've struggled with crippling self-esteem, mental health issues, depression, abandonment, just this all constant fear of being judged, and that, writing stories and drawing pictures would never feed a family. So, it was always something I could never put any effort into. But now with the current days, you go into like how it's going into the next phase of like, where I came from as a writer into where I am now. You don't write for money. You write because you have to. You write because there's story out there that you want to tell. There's story that you want to see. And the only person who can bring that story of yours to the world is really you. So I learned to write for myself finally in my 40s. It took me a really long time. Some people find that faster. Some people learn to write for themselves quicker than I did. But it took me a really long time to write for myself. And then getting over the fear of sharing it with others. You're always worried about that. You write a story and you wonder, is anybody going to want to read this? Is this good? What makes me and my voice stand out amid the avalanche of story that exists all around us? Like you pick up a book off a shelf. That author who wrote that book has to compete for your attention with every medium of storytelling that exists nowadays. Netflix, Amazon Prime, video games, comic books, TikTok, social media, these videos. Watching me right now talk on this video is a competition for your time against anything else that you could be doing with the small amounts of time that we get for ourselves these days. So as an author, you need to be able to believe that what you have to say is worth the time that people are going to dedicate to listening to your words, whether they're reading it off of a page, watching it on a video, or whatever. And that's a terrifying thing for anybody, unless you figure out that, you write what you write for you and you put it out there. And if people want to read it, they will. And if you do what you love to do, you write what you love to read, and you get it out there, eventually someone who wants to hear it will read it. And you'll never know when you're going to get that little message that says, this is my favorite book. And when that happens, when you get that message, that's when you realize that's the reason you do it. That is why you do it. I don't write to get rich or famous. And I certainly don't ever believe that one of my books will become a movie deal. And yeah, I've been called out on that before. I've had people say, well, if you don't put it out to the universe will never give it back. And the law of attraction and stuff like that. You gotta think of those things. And maybe I do, but maybe I don't. Because maybe it's enough for me just to love telling stories, that eventually the stories will live on their own without me having to push them all the time. Now, I guess I'm not sure if I got off topic there a little bit. I'm very passionate about storytelling. I have been my whole life in a ton of different forms, consuming it and stuff anyways, but also creating it. I mean, I started writing comic books, and then I started writing short films, and then I was writing movie scripts, and then I was writing journalism articles, and then I was writing short stories, and now I'm learning to write novels. And I was also writing animation. I even took courses on video games and non-linear story structure and all this kind of stuff. But I guess the point I'm trying to get is why we write is probably the first question that anybody who wants to write should ask themselves. And it's the first question you should be able to answer looking in a mirror. Why do I write? Because I have a story to tell. And I believe that somewhere, somebody out there wants to hear it. So that's part one. And hopefully doing more of these videos very soon. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And we'll talk to you soon.